Drake.
Hey. Whoa, up close and personal. What are you doing, brother?
Oh, just getting back into a little bit of home life for a minute and then back out.
Yeah, you guys have been out on the road with JRG Dub playing some shows, correct?
Yeah, it's been good. Been busy, super busy.
Awesome, brother.
All of a sudden got busy. Yeah.
Awesome. So this is an earlier time than our normal show, which is kind of nice, brother. I'm kind of digging it, to be honest with you.
I know, so am I.
We might have to make a permanent change.
Or maybe even just an hour, split the difference, whatever. We can figure it out.
Yeah, something like that.
Last week was my brother Mike's birthday. This week is my dad's birthday. He turns 89, so I'm going to say birthday shout out to my dad. I don't know if he's out there. He's probably not. Who knows what he's doing? But he might be. So,
well, happy birthday. Definitely. 89.
89. I tried to call him and he didn't pick up. I'm like, thanks, Dad.
But, well,
he'll pick
Michael was always his favorite.
Right? Born a week apart.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, man. We've got a big show. I'm glitchy on my side. Are you glitchy on your side?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, if I drop out, I'll let you and Rudy kill it because I'll have to try to figure out the connection issues here because it's definitely on my end.
Yeah, you know what? And lots to talk about. We're just kind of hanging out, and we could talk about Blue Collar Cables if we want sponsors. They cabled my studio and dope panels, help soundproof room and sponsors. But yeah, what do you think? Should we just jump into it?
I think we do it, dude. I think we just right there. Just do it like that. Rudy, what's happening, brother?
Oh. Hey, yeah, I was just backstage. There's no deli tray.
I told the girls to get
it all.
We'll blame Jack. Jack's not here right now, so we'll blame Jack. Jack ate all the goodies, drank all the goodies. It's all Jack, brother. It was there for you, though, Rudy. I promise.
Yeah, but there were no brown M&Ms, so that's good.
Oh no,
yes, right?
Yeah.
Not the brown M&Ms.
Yeah.
I worked a show for Britney Spears where she had to have all blue M&Ms.
Blue M&Ms, okay.
3 ones blue M&Ms, nothing else color-wise.
Oh, okay. I think those have those are the most toxic of all the M&Ms. The dye on the M&Ms.
Right, exactly.
It gives you a buzz before it kills you. Yeah.
Right before death, you feel better.
Yeah, it's like eating that blowfish sushi. It can go either way. It could be a great buzz or it can kill you. Yeah.
Either way, you're going to enjoy a few minutes. I think I did that in the 80s. The great buzz that lasted way too long.
Yeah, I hear you. I think we all did.
Right? So welcome to our show, man. I appreciate you with us. I know we were trying to get you on for a while, and it took some time. And, man, I'm glad you're here, brother.
I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Here I am.
Everywhere you go. All right, Robby. I know you've been biting at the bit for this one, brother. I'm gonna let you rock in here now.
I have some questions I wanted to ask. I mean, we had Robert on here, and it was a great time. Robert is,
my brother.
Well, you know your brother better than we all do.
I want to make sure we got the right Robert. Yeah.
Yes, brother. Yes, that Robert. And it left me with some questions. And being as you were the older brother, I was curious about some of when you're growing up in Havana before you guys came over, and leading up to that, and about your aunt and uncle, because I know your aunt was an actress, right? And your uncle was an opera singer, and an actor and a musician, I think.
Yeah.
I'm curious about all that and how that played into your future. If your aunt and uncle were, it just influenced you to thinking you liking music, wanting to do music. Of course, Ed Sullivan, we know that. But before that, this is pre all that. I mean, what do you remember from that time?
Yes and no. I mean, music was always part of our life. As a matter of fact, I just dropped a video. Actually, it was a song that I did. I don't know if you guys seen it on Facebook. It's on my site. I put it on all my social media. And it's basically, most of it is 8mm film that my dad took during that time. So I incorporated all those film that was then transferred to VHS a long time ago, and somebody did a poor job because it's a lot of flicker. And then I took the VHS and put it and digitized it. And so I mean, it's got a lot of nostalgia to it because it's just flickering and the colors are really faded and all that. But it's us. It's us during that time. Thank God, that my dad documented a lot of our lives. He was a big video fanatic. He loved doing that and taking photos. So and as you see on the video that I did, it's called "Tears of the Immigrant." And it's on YouTube also. We were always together. My mom and dad. We never had a babysitter. It was either if the kids must come along to wherever they go, type of attitude. So we got to see a lot as kids, and they were very, very liberated as far as their lifestyle went. Like if somebody, let's say a relative came by, hunt the horn, this is like in Cuba, 70 years ago, whatever, and 65 years because I was a little bit older, and I'm 70 now. And they will hunt the horn from below, and my dad would go in the balcony. Oh, come on, let's go have some Chinese food. They would just grab us and we'll go to have Chinese food with my folks and my uncles and stuff like that. Yeah. So they were not really tied up to a certain schedule. We don't do certain things, which I do now. At a certain time, I have like my cutoff points. I get up really early, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then the rest of my day is to do whatever I need to get done. And then by 6 o'clock is family time. That's it. I turned everything off, phones and stuff like that.
That's really, really cool. We talked about that when booking the show, that you do family time after 6 p.m. And that's something that my wife and I keep talking about instituting here. Shut off the phone, shut off the TVs, and let's just hang out as a family. And that's got to be really rewarding for you.
It is. And I learned how to do that also because I spent a lot of time on the road. My wife and I were going to celebrate our 37th wedding anniversary, June 24th.
Nice.
This year.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And, we've been together. This year is going to mark 40 years of us being together. So she's been with me since Ozzy, and, we get to grow as humans, and there's certain needs, and the older I get, the more mature we get, the more we are like, okay, we have to like set things, have some kind of a structure to our lives, and family time is like, to me, that's the most important thing. Once 6 o'clock hits, that's it. It's family time,
Wow.
My wife, I'm sure, is listening and going, "Are you taking note?" I try to, but sometimes I can't. I mean, things pop up and I have to address it. But for the most part, I do try and cut it off at a certain point. And go.
Yeah, I know musicians who are very, very driven. I've had these conversations with them, and they do kind of like regret that they spend so much time, let's say, in the studio after hours, trying to get things done. I mean, and I know that they do it because, first of all, they're driven, they're passionate about their creations, and also they want a better life for their family. But as they look back, they think, maybe I should have balanced it a little bit more.
That's true. And you know what? I think COVID actually taught me that over the last year. I've been really trying to do a lot more balance with everything I do. I mean, I was cutting it off at a certain point and going, okay, I'm going to go out and hang out with my daughter and wife and son and whatever. And certain nights it didn't happen, but for the most part, I've been trying to keep that balance. So that's good.
Yeah.
So Cuba in that era, that had to have been a very drastic change in culture and life when you moved to the States, was it not?
Oh yeah, of course it was. It was. But
pre-Castro. That was pre-Castro.
Oh no. Well, we decided to leave like a year after Castro was in, like around 1960. But it took us
September
about a year
1st, 1961.
Well, that's
what
when
Robert
we arrived. Yeah.
Oh, that's when you arrived.
But before we arrived, we had to go through all of the documentation. get passports, get visas to come to the United States, get a sponsor to sponsor us. Otherwise, they were not going to let us in. And, all of the documentation you had to get. So it took a while. And of course, we didn't have the technology of computers and, being able to do things faster than now you can do things really fast compared to like in the old days. There's a lot of paper trail going on. And so, it was different. But the biggest impact that I had when I came to the United States was actually when we were relocated from Miami in 1963, and my parents picked New Jersey. We had choices. We could have gone to Chicago, LA, Alaska for the pipeline. And my dad said, no, let's go to Jersey, just in case if we decide to return to Miami, we'll just drive back down. And which is what we did for about 3-4 years later. So in 63, we settled in West New York. And this is the first time that I actually experienced the urban lifestyle, especially in the 60s. We lived in a place called West New York, New Jersey, which was right across from the Hudson River. You could see the skyline of New York City. And what happened was, this is the first time that I actually experienced neighborhoods. Like the Polish will live in one couple of blocks, and then the Italians live here, and the Irish live here, and all these different culture, ethnicities separated, and then in school, like the kids, it's the same thing. The Italians hung out together, the Irish hung out together, and here I am, Latino, Cuban, and there was not a whole lot of Latins at that time in West New York. Now it's all predominantly Cubans in there, but not 60 years ago. And so that was 63. Kennedy gets shot in November, and that was like, doom and gloom. I mean, it was like the most gloomy holidays you could ever imagine, kind of like what we just experienced with COVID. And so that was gloom and doom for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, and then February 1964, the Beatles play on Ed Sullivan. Yeah. And that was our generation's equivalent of the Big Bang. This is where everything exploded. And with the Beatles, and it's really interesting looking back, of course it was the British invasion. So you had the Beatles, and then after that, the Stones and the Kinks and Dave Clark 5 and the Animals. It just kept going on and on. So it wasn't a fad. It was like rap. It's not gonna go away.
Right.
A lot of parents said, "Oh yeah, well that's a fad. It will be gone in a month." No, it just kept going, and they kept coming. The Who came in later, and all of that, right? And then the Doors and the Beach Boys and the Turtles and okay. So what happened was that the next day in school, we started combing our hair forward, because before that it was all like a big pompadour,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, you're into that. You saw the Beatles. Yeah. And so that's when we started talking and socializing from all different ethnic backgrounds, because we had music in common, and along with what was really significant about the Beatles, it wasn't just about the music. It was about the social consciousness they brought to the United States. Especially by the time they start getting into Revolver, they start getting a little bit more spiritual, And then by the time that Harrison was bringing in songs like Within You, Without You, all the Indian music, there's a very spirituality into it. And songs like All You Need Is Love, it helped us really cement my generation's consciousness as being like the first rock and roll spiritual consciousness generation. And right now, I mean, if you look at history, of the past few decades, as in the 60s and 70s, my generation, that was our world. And then now at this point, we have to like acknowledge that the younger generation, this is really their world now.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You played with some of the largest bands in history, some of the mega hits of our decade, soundtracks of our lives. Looking back on where you are now and what you knew then.
I'm looking back where I'm now. Okay.
What would you tell yourself at 15, 20 years old about the future that laid ahead?
I will give myself a big hug and say thank you.
Yeah. And you would think that silver tone guitar, wouldn't you?
The silver, I tell you, hang on to that one. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it was it's in the video. My brother and I were like playing the guitar.
Oh, nice.
You know, and then at some point, my brother's also, I have footage of him playing an electric silver tone. Yeah, either a Kent or a silver tone guitar. And I would say, hang on to it. This is going to be this thing called eBay and Reverb later on that we can actually make some money from it.
Right. He said the accent on it was horrible. He said it was horrible, but you guys both started at the same time, which really surprised me because it's usually the older brother teaches the younger brother, but you guys got the guitar and shared it and learned from one of your dad's friends, correct? He showed you some chords and stuff, and you kind of took it from there.
Yeah, just enough to like. I mean, I think I learned more from the kids that I was hanging out after school, you know, from the neighborhood. No, I mean, there was no consistency in our tutoring, if we had any. I mean, I don't think somebody showing us, you know, an A chord would really set us off on our career path.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't think so, you know. But it was nice of them. It was nice of them.
Glenn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what about those kids that you learned from the neighborhood? Are any of those kids around? You talk to any of those people that you played from back in the day at all?
Yeah. I've run into a couple, and mostly through social media. One of them is, the last time I spoke to him, he was the chief fire marshal in Miami. Yeah. And yeah, he was doing really well, and he still has that 335, nice. the Gibson, the 335 that he played back when we were in our first school band that went on to play in clubs in Miami Beach. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. When did you start playing in your first school band? What age?
Well, I mean, a school band, which would mean when I was in school, I had a band, right? Because we didn't have rock bands in school back then. It was usually marching band or what they call the orchestra, the big band, you know.
Right.
And so when I started playing, actually, in 68, that's when I started playing in party bands.
Cool.
Party bands, and which meant, like, you know, we have this thing called quinceañeras. When the girl turns 15,
15. Yep.
They have they throw, it's like a debutante, you know, for the Anglo culture, you know. But so they would hire a couple of bands, and there was some great musicians that came out of there. Will Lee was one of the guys in the circuit that would play in the other party band. Will Lee's, you know, David Letterman's band bass player. Yeah. And he was he was amazing even back then, you know, truly an inspiration. His father was the dean of music at the University of Miami, so, you know, he got some solid schooling education. And I used to go and watch Jacko play locally in everywhere. Around the University of Miami, they had like these sub shops. You know, they would sell subs, sandwiches, and they had like a little stage, and Jacko would be playing with jazz musicians like Ira Sullivan. And I would be eating a meatball sandwich and watching Jacko play. It was
Nice.
great. And then when he started playing with Wayne Cochran, I used to go and watch him play at the Newport Lounge. Castaways is across the street. Yeah, the Newport Lounge, Seven Seas, and it was fantastic. You know.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. What a different time, right? A completely different era. I mean, just amazing.
So we got a bunch of questions coming in. Lisa wants to know what made you sit down and wanted to start doing 6 Degrees of Sarzo.
Great question, Lisa. Well, it happened like this. I started going to a few memorials for bandmates and colleagues, like Ronnie's funeral and Lemmy's, Jimmy Bain from Dio. And, I'm sitting there, everybody's saying all these wonderful things about everybody, as they should. And I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't it be nice to document how people feel about each other in the music industry, our colleagues and bandmates, and catalog it and have it in their own words. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. And that was it. That was pretty much I call it the dash. The dash meaning that line on a headstone between your birth date and your death date. The dash, life. That's life. So it's all about life, talking about, so when I started out as a podcast, of course, podcasts are linear. We just go with the flow. Once I did the podcast and I got a call from Harlan Henriksen, who is the CEO of Monsters of Rock, which is the station that my radio show is on. He asked me to do a radio show. And I'll go back and tell you why I really love it once I'm done, why I love doing a radio show versus just a podcast. Okay.
Right.
And so I said, yeah, I would love to do that. So he gave me a format. The format of our show, 6 Degrees, is basically 4-hour show. We do 2 spoken segments, conversations. And then the music that Harlan, my producer and the owner of the station, he puts together a playlist. He's a bona fide DJ. He's been a rock DJ for his life. And so he puts together the playlist and we have a show. It's a 4-hour show. Now, the reason why I was really leaning towards the whole idea of just you get to hear the show when it airs is because I do understand the frequency that it creates when everybody has the same consciousness. Going back to the day when I was a kid, we had a local DJ in Miami called Rick Shaw. And for some reason, he will always get advance copies because Miami was the test city. If you've ever been involved in radio, test city for all of those of you out there was certain cities like Cleveland, Miami. They would put a song on the radio, and if it got really great ratings, like people calling in and requesting it, then they'll pass it on to the other markets, the bigger markets, New York City, Chicago, and so on. So what happened was this guy would come on and say, okay, we got the brand new Beatles single coming up at 3:00. Tune in. And I would be waiting by the radio, waiting for that thing. And I knew all my friends, all the kids in the neighborhood were doing the same thing. And then we would hear it for the first time and go, whoa, like hearing I Am the Walrus for the first time. That was like, whoa. I couldn't wait to buy the record so I could keep listening over and over again to all the little details in the song. So I understand that. I understand the power of everybody. And another example is you're driving in a car in the old days where you only had AM, FM radio, and you listen to your favorite FM station, rock station, and let's say Something in the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. And you're driving down the freeway, and everybody at the same time is going, ba-bam, 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 hands off the wheel. We're just driving. You look over at the car, you go, oh, yeah, we're listening to the same station. I just love that. I love that. And now, since the show, you can tune in globally. It's a global consciousness of being in tune to the same frequency at the same time. And I think, man, this is really significant, in a humanity point of view.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Being in radio, I love that. And especially when I'm driving down the road and I'll see people listening to the station that I'm on, and I'm hearing them in my car, and I'm seeing them rock out to it. It makes you feel fantastic. Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely. Rafa, how did you come up with licking your fingers while playing the bass?
Well, if you ever lived in Miami, Florida, and I'm going to add more to it. Okay, we're talking about 60s strings. In the 60s, we had flat wounds. We didn't have round wounds available yet. It was all flat. And boy, you're sweating in those clubs, and you got the smoke. People smoke back then. They smoked more than they drank, actually. Right. I think they went to bars to smoke, not to drink. And you'll be up on that stage, and you come home smelling from smoke and the booze. And I would, Miami clubs were, late night. I wouldn't even leave the house until like 11 to start at midnight. And then you play all the way to 5 o'clock because we had limits. Don't play past 5 a.m. You have a cutoff point here. We're civilized, right? Okay.
Fine culture.
Yeah. I know. Very fine. So I'm coming home 6 o'clock. Do I really want to drag that bass out of the trunk of the car, which is going to be about 120 degrees at noon? No, I don't. I'm too tired. So I just leave it there. Then I take it. I get back in the car in the late evening to go back to the club. I open up the case, and I'm basically playing. I got barbed wire on my guitar. They're not strings anymore. It's barbed wire. So I was going like, oh my God, I'm gonna hurt myself, if I lick it, give it some kind of lubrication. That's it. That was it, man. Lubrication. And that's how I started licking my fingers. I mean, you can actually see the moss and the rust and the green. The strings were turning green. And this is before I learned about boiling strings, which I do now. I still do. I love boiling my strings. Yeah.
I haven't heard that in a long time. I haven't heard anybody doing that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Boiling your strings.
Yeah. Bass players do that.
Bass strings, yeah.
Get you more play from them, or?
Doug Dunn, I read he only had one set of string, and he was like one of the original boilers, if not the original boiler. The same set of strings through his career. Flat wounds, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, I have endorsements.
Well,
so I really don't pay for my strings, but then again, I will want to be abusive of my endorsements. So I try to get as much life out of my strings as possible, because I don't want to be that guy that orders a lot of strings, and then just say, no, I'm gonna be sensible here and with grateful about it. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll tell you, one of the albums that absolutely changed my life, changed my thought process, changed everything about me was obviously Mental Health. Mm-hmm. And Quiet Riot, in my neighborhood, everybody was into wearing the big, baggy pants and all that. And Quiet Riot hit, and it changed me. Jennifer piped in with this. What was the recording process like for Quiet Riot's Mental Health album? And going on tour for that back in the 80s, what was the feeling in the studio?
That is a great question. Okay, one thing that hold on. Let's put the timeline of it. Okay, when Randy Rhoads left to join Ozzy in 1979, the band Quiet Riot did not exist anymore. I started doing other things. Kevin put together his own band called Dubro, right? And eventually I started playing with Kevin in Dubro. I moved in with him, And a lot of the songs from the record, Mental Health, are songs that were written by Kevin during that period, right? So I was familiar with the Dubrow songs, Thunderbird, Let's Get Crazy, what was it? Oh, Love's a Bitch, and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm living with Kevin, playing with him in Dubrow. Also, I was playing in a band called Angel, but I wasn't really gigging out with them. I was only gigging with Dubrow. Okay, and I joined Ozzy, right? So I'm off. I'm playing with Ozzy. Now, meanwhile, Kevin keeps going with Dubrow. And then, so Randy passes, he dies, he passes away. And the song Thunderbird was a song that Kevin wrote for Randy when Randy left Quiet Riot to join Ozzy. And I get a call. This is I'm getting ready. I'm on a tour break from Ozzy, and we're about to go to New York to record the Speak of the Devil Black Sabbath re-recordings. And Kevin says, "Hey, listen, I'm in the studio here, and we're working on a possible record with this producer and blah blah blah. Would you like to come down and play bass on Thunderbird?" Now, I didn't have my basses because those were on the road with Ozzy, but I had my practice bass, which was a bass synthesizer, Roland GR55. And I go, "Yeah, sure, I'll come down and I'll track that song." That's all I thought I was going to do, just to play one song, right? So I go, and of course I had played that song before, and Frankie, who had been in bands with him on and off since 1972,
Yep.
was the drummer in Dubrow at the time. Carlos Cabasso playing guitar. So I really felt at home, really felt great being with my buddies, something that was really missing in my life after Randy died. It was really painful to go on stage without him. I lost completely the joy of music, of making music. So that was really a positive, good, great experience playing with them, playing Thunderbird. And then, we do the song in a couple of takes. So there was hours left for the session. And the producer goes, "Oh, do you remember Slate Black Cadillac?" And I go, "Yeah, let me just go over with the guys, a couple of times, and then we can track it." That's a song that we used to do in Quiet Riot with Randy. That was the only song that made it from that era to that Mental Health record. A song written by Kevin. Kevin wrote that song. Okay.
Wow.
So we cut that one and say, "Well, we still got more time. Do you remember, this other song?" And so by the time I left, I had cut like at least 4 songs for the record. But I'm still a member of Ozzy doing that, but it was such a great experience playing with my friends, and that once I went back to later that week to start rehearsals for the Speak of the Devil recordings at the Ritz, live at the Ritz, it just it kept lingering, like, wow, I need to do that. I need to get that feeling again, of the joy of playing, because after Randy died, especially months after that, we were still reeling for that. We had not, we didn't have time to mourn. We didn't have time to go through any of the emotional release that we needed to have, and we just kept going. And so as soon as I finished my session for Speak of the Devil, I went back to LA. And I called and I told the guys, "Listen, yeah, I want to," because they asked me, "Would you like to come back?" And then I said, "You know what? Let me think about it." And by the time I came back from recording at the Ritz with Ozzy, I had made a decision that that's what I wanted to do. I mean, the complete unknown, just going into, there's no guarantees. There was no money behind it. It was a production deal. but my happiness was more important than anything else. The joy of making music, So I did. I told Sharon that I was going to leave the band, and that was that was my end with Ozzy, and then I went back and I finished the rest of the songs that needed to have bass, because before I went in the studio, when they asked me initially, Chuck Wright had played on Mental Health and Don't Want to Let You Go. Those were songs that were brought in by Carlos from his old band Snow, another local band in LA. So that's why Chuck is on those two songs.
Wow.
So Lizard, the band Lizard, was with Frankie Banali. Is that correct, Frankie?
Yeah, of course. Oh no. I mean, your
history goes way back to
72, 73.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did I'm curious, how did you end up in California, and was Frankie already out here before you got to California, or how did that all come to play before?
Yeah. Frankie and we have ventured at separate times to come to LA. I traveled to LA 3 times, and I stayed here on the third one. I came to LA first, like around 76. We a couple of guys and myself, and we tried to put a band together, and we decided it was going to be more sensible to do it in the Midwest. So we did, and so we started. We had this band called Shatterstar in the Midwest, and we started playing the whole Chicago circuit and neighboring states, and then and then we came back to LA again after that. So that was my second trip to LA, and we put a band together, and we run out of money, and I went back to play with my brother in New Jersey. He had a band, and with his wife, my sister-in-law, and I played there, and I got some more money again to be able to go back to LA, and that's when I joined Quiet Riot. The Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot.
Oh, so that's how.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting.
Incredible. Brenda would like to know, was there a pivotal moment in your history, your career, where you knew that your career was going to be much larger than what you'd expected? Was it the moment of surreality?
Oh, that is a great question. Because once that happened to me, I didn't stop there. It was like, because now you understand, once you reach a certain level beyond my wildest dreams, now it's not about my dream anymore. It's about, because it's not a dream anymore, it's a reality. So you start thinking about the reality. The reality is, how are we going to sustain this as a band? How are we going to, because you can create, you cannot create a career off one record. You have to build as an artist, So I think that moment was when we realized, boy, we got to come up with a new record, and it's got to be at least as successful as the last one. The last one happened to be Mental Health, The last one was, So it's like, it's like, so, where do we go from here? So, it's a really great question, because there's so many layers to the perception that I experienced. And what happens is, again, we went in there. My goal with Quiet Riot was to find joy in making music once again. It was not about having a #1 album, right? So everything that happened with that record was very honest and very humble. But there were certain songs and a certain quality to the band Quiet Riot, which was very organic. When we started touring for Mental Health, we played both. We were support bands for Scorpions, ZZ Top. We played the Oz Festival. We support Loverboy, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, and in between we play clubs. In between days, we never had a day off.
Wow.
Never a day off. On the arena day offs, we play clubs, right?
Wow.
And we gave the same intensity, performance-wise, as we did in an arena, in a club. It didn't matter to us. And this goes back to the original Quiet Riot. I mean, if you look at any photos of Randy Rhoads playing in a club with Quiet Riot, and then you put a photo of him playing with Ozzy, it's the same intensity.
Yeah.
You know, he just, it's not like all of a sudden I am like really playing, you know, playing with a certain degree of passion. No, Randy had passion at sound check. You know, so it was like, this is what he did. And so it was something that it was part of the whole Quiet Riot DNA, to like give it everything you got, no matter where you're playing at.
So how did you meet Randy? How did that come about?
Well, that was at the Quiet Riot audition that I did.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you hear about the audition? How did that come about?
Okay, good question. In one of my trips, I believe it was the second one, I ventured to the Sunset Strip to hopefully getting to see Van Halen at the Whiskey, and they were sold out, of course. So I followed the crowd down to the Starwood, which was another club down the street, you know, about maybe half a mile away, in my 6-inch boots that were a little too tight because they were girls boots. You can find cool rock and roll clothing in LA in the mid 70s. You know, I mean, we all stole clothing from girls. We just went through the closet and said, "Wow, this will look great on stage on me." You know, yeah, that's what we wore. So we were walking around the streets like that, you know. so I went to the Starwood and I saw Quiet Riot, and I'm going, and it's the same thing that I do with any band that I'm really impressed by. I go to them after the show and I tell them, "Man, you guys are on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing." You know, so I did that. I ran into Kevin when he got off the stage, and he was out there in the crowd, and I said, "You know, hey, my name is Rudy. Hi, nice to meet you. I just saw you guys. You guys were great. Keep what you're doing." So he remembered my accent, because when they were looking for bass players, I was out of town at that time. So people were saying, yeah, you know, Rudy, that's the guy you need to have in the band. And he's going, "Who's this guy?" I said, "You know, he's got an accent." "Oh, I remember him. He talked to me, blah, 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 blah." So he tracks me down in New Jersey.
Wow.
And he got my brother's home phone number. And I already had a ticket to return to LA the next week. So he called me up and you know, says, "Hey, you know, want you to come down to audition." And I go, "Great, because I'm going to be in LA next week. I already got my ticket. I'm ready to go." So I arrive in LA, call them up and say, "Hey, I'm here." And the next day I did the audition and got the gig.
Wow. So Randy Rhoads, obviously one of the most incredibly talented human beings to ever pick up the guitar and get on stage. What was his energy like behind the stage, his creative? How did he prepare? And what did that do for you?
Yeah, I played with two Randy Rhoads. I played with the Randy Rhoads in Quiet Riot, where his mindset was to write music that was going to be commercial enough for us to get signed at a time where what record companies were looking for was either punk or new wave. This is like late 70s, you know. Right. So he was kind of like, you know, we were all having problems, you know, being creative, because what the fruit that they were looking for was not coming out of our tree, you know. And they thought, "Well, your tree, we're about to chop it down because it ain't gonna come back, you know. That fruit's not selling, you know." and which is rock, hard rock. But it wasn't just us; it was everybody. Most of the bands that made it in the early '80s, like Motley Crue and Rat and Dokken and Great White, they were around when we were around in Quiet Riot, and they went through the same thing exactly, and so that's the reason actually why Randy left to join Ozzy, because his mother told him, hey, this might be the only opportunity you get to actually do something with your talent, because it's not happening here. You cannot stay here and really think that you're going to be a successful musician in what you want to do. So she's the one that gave him the incentive to leave LA, go play with Ozzy. And first thing he does is ask Ozzy, what do you want me to write? And Ozzy says, just be yourself. Now, me having spent time with Randy at his mom's music school, Musonia, where Randy used to teach, and he asked me to also come in to teach bass. That's where I got to see that classical side of Randy, because I never saw him play a classical guitar at rehearsal with us. I mean, he would do some classical type of, on the electric, some finger style playing, but it's completely different. Once he's got a classical guitar in his hand, he's playing classical music. It's not trying to finger style picking on an electric. It sounds completely different. So that's when he really dove into his classical training. And that's why those first two albums, especially by the time you get to Diary, is so unique sounding. His songwriting, compositional style change. It was a lot of if you listen to the first album, Blizzard of Oz, it's very diatonic.
Right.
It's all it's let's say Crazy Trains in the key of A major, and it's all the chords, all the modes in A major. Goodbye to Romance, D major, all the modes in D major. Mr. Crowley, D minor, all the modes in D minor. Once it gets into Diary of a Madman, is modal inter exchange. Mm-hmm. He's not taking one key. He's going from different keys, in the same song. That's when his composition really opened up wide.
Wow.
I've heard that he was thinking about leaving Ozzy to pursue classical guitar or whatever. I don't know if that's true. You would know probably.
Yeah.
That true that he was thinking about. He was kind of reached that point that he.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Off the Rails to answer the number one question I get asked when I travel around the world, which is, what was it like to play with Randy Rhoads? And that's in there. I mean, it's right before he died. He told Sharon and Ozzy that he was just gonna do one more record, a couple more tours with them, and then he was just going to go back to school to get his degree in music. Wow. And that was it. That at the moment that he passed away, that what was set. That's what he had decided to do with the rest of his career. Now, having said that, and knowing how persuasive Sharon can be, they might have worked it out, kind of like what Zakk Wylde wound up doing, where Zakk has his own solo thing, career, and then he plays with Ozzy. It could have turned into something like that. But at that time, that wasn't even a thought. It was more like, I'm going back to school.
Yeah, wow.
They want to know, how is your relationship with Ozzy and Sharon now?
I mean, every time we run into each other, we give each other hugs, but then, it's like that with everybody else that I play with. I'm not constantly texting or on the phone. I mean, but I got some great memories, and every time we get together, we just pick it right up where we left off.
That's beautiful, man.
After Quiet Riot, what happened there? What are some of the steps that took place when you left Quiet Riot?
In '85, yeah.
Yeah.
I put together a band with Tommy Aldridge, and we pursued putting a band together. And there's two things that happened. Uh, and let me give you a little backstory. Whitesnake was the opening band for Quiet Riot in 1984. So I got to know the band really well.
Mhm.
And the guys in the band, and got to hang out with them and so on. And I also got to know the dynamics within the band, that were conflicts that were going on,
Uh-huh.
And then, but I had also given notice to the guys in Quiet Riot that after that tour that ended in '85, I was going to leave the band. So somehow Coverdale finds about it, and on our last night of the tour, we threw a little party for the band, Whitesnake, and he gives me a hug as we're saying goodbye, and he whispers in my ear, "We're going to play together soon." And I go, "Oh, he must have heard, that I'm playing." I said, "Okay." I know, I still had some more dates to do with the band, so it wasn't like, great, it was like, okay, I still got to play with these guys, and, because I like to I like to concentrate on one thing at a time,
Right.
because otherwise I get distracted. I only got now to deal with,
Right.
Okay. So now I keep on going with Quiet Riot, and then I finished all my commitments, and now I am with Tommy Aldridge, and we get a phone call from Whitesnake management and says, we'd like to talk to you both. I said, okay, great. So we go over to the office, and they offer us the members of Whitesnake. This is before the '87 record was started, pre-production, and so I find out that one of the conflicting elements in the group was still there. By then, it wasn't a group anymore. It was David and John Sykes, And I'm like, oof, I love Sykes. He was an incredible guitar player, but I know there's just this stuff going on. So I pass. And eventually Tommy passes on it too. So they went out and they made that '87 record, and then 2 years later we get the call, because by then David is the only remaining member of the band, right? And John Coladner calls my house where Tommy was staying at, and invite us to perform on the Still of the Night video. And so we agreed, because we figure, this is probably the gateway for us, because now there's no conflict anymore. It's a clean slate with Whitesnake, And so we agreed to do the video, and then we meet, of course, Adrian and Vivian, who I've known them socially, but we were not in a band together. And we hit it off. It was great. Everybody felt great about it, and so a few days later, it's official. Everybody committed to being in the band, because at that point only Adrian had committed to being in the band.
Wow.
And there you have it.
Nice.
So what was that collaboration with you and Aldridge? Was that Mars? Was that the?
Oh no, we did it. We did a bunch of stuff. Okay, we played together in Aussie. We played together in Project Driver, Mars, that you're talking about. We played together in Whitesnake, and we also played together in Manic Eden, which is with Adrian Vandenberg and Ron Young from Little Caesar. Yeah, not the pizza, not Little Caesar the pizza, but the band.
The pizza.
Yeah.
Brother, I'm looking at the bio from you, and of course the book Off the Rails, which I'm definitely going to have to read now. Everybody in the audience is saying that. But I've got a lot of people climbing in the conversation saying that they love what you do with animals and dog rescues. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know what? To me, the real heroes are the people who get their hands dirty every day, meaning they work with them at the shelters. One of them is Linda Blair. She's a dear friend, and she's got her own sanctuary and her own shelter in the mountains of near Santa Clarita. Yeah, she years ago, decades ago, she gave up acting to pursue that, saving animals. You know, every time there's like a major disaster, like let's say Katrina,
right?
She drives over, and starts rescuing dogs and bringing them back to California. Oh yeah, she's amazing. See, to me, those are the real heroes. I'm just a guy who every time I see something on my social, links, Facebook or whatever, I share, I repost it, the availability of the shelter, pets that are available. Yeah.
Wow, we should have Linda on the show, Robby, to talk about that. That's obviously something near and dear to my heart.
We've got both have animals from rescue animals, right? You've got one. I've got a rescue too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love that. Love that. That would be fantastic. So let's get in a couple questions here before you got to go at 6:00. Obviously, people are saying you got to come back because there's so much more that we have to talk about, and an hour just wasn't enough with you. Jennifer wants to know, how did you wind up playing with Ronnie James?
That's a great question. I mean, Ronnie and I, we've known each other socially. We've been on the same outdoor festival circuits. Him with Dio, me with Whitesnake. We did a bunch of shows in Europe. So I'm touring. This is let's say 2004. I'm touring with Yngwie Malmsteen. And during his USA Attack tour, the record was the Attack record.
Right.
And I'm on tour. In the middle of the tour, I get a call from Wendy Dio, Ronnie's wife and manager, and she says, "Hey, Ronnie wants you to come in and record on the new record, which turned out to be Master of the Moon." And I go, "Wow, this is great, but I'm in the middle of the tour with Yngwie. I'm sorry, I just can't walk away from this, So I said, you know what? If you guys still want me to come in the band after I'm done with my commitments with Yngwie, I would love to, So I'm done. I finished my commitments with Yngwie. I called Wendy back, and she says, "Yeah, Ronnie would love to have you in the band." By then, they already finished the record, and Jeff Pilson did a great job. He's been a member of the Dio family before and all of that. So it worked out. And then in 2004, I joined Ronnie, and I was his bass player in Dio until he passed in 2010. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the Blue Oyster Cult thing, that came after, right?
That came after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. As a matter of fact, I was doing it simultaneously because while I was playing with Ronnie towards the end, Heaven and Hell, which is his Black Sabbath version with Ronnie.
Right.
But renamed Heaven and Hell because by then Black Sabbath has already been inducted into the Hall of Fame with Ozzy. So now they got to call it something different. So they call it Heaven and Hell. And so they were touring a lot, which gave me free time. So I was doing different projects. And one of them, I started playing with Blue Oyster Cult.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So they want to know out of all of the bands, all the musicians, everything that you've done in your life, who was it that you looked up to the most?
I have to say, in retrospect, I looked up the most. The one that I learned the most, there were two. Definitely Randy. Because Randy, I mean, without Randy's mentorship, when I first joined Aussie, I would have gone totally nuts, because I had never been in a situation like that. The situation is like, entering Aussie world.
Right.
It is like, it is that. It is that. And then you throw in Sharon world right next to it. It is that. It is like, wow. And Randy would go to me, listen, don't take it personal. That's just the way they are. They're just like nobody else you've ever met. Which it wasn't bad. It was just like, whoa, this is crazy. Everything was like really fast, you know. And up until then, you know, my only reference to the music industry was the guy who had played on the Sunset Strip with Quiet Riot with Randy, and that's it. I had no resume. I was sleeping on the floor at Kevin DuBro's apartment. So I was green. I was as green as you can get, you know. And I'm thrown into this world of like, whoa, I'm touring. I'm on tour with a guy who's been on tour for the last 16 years with Black Sabbath. That's pretty crazy. Ozzy was like, by then, it was like he had done just about every crazy shit that you could ever think of from a rock star. And little that I knew, he was just getting started. Because now it's not Black Sabbath anymore. It's Ozzy. So it's like, you mean I'm allowed to do any crazy shit that I could not do with Black Sabbath, and now I can do it because it's about me now rather than everybody else. Oh yeah. So it was nuts. It was but nuts also in a loving, caring way. It was like a combination of, it was like every single sense, everything tasted different, sounded different, felt different. Everything, all the senses were magnified completely, you know.
Wow.
But that act blew up huge. You guys, it went huge so fast. It was like
very fast,
like an explosion.
Very fast. A lot of word of mouth. It was this. I don't know if it was really a strategy, a genius strategy, or it was just the way things were done in the 80s pre-MTV. So, you know, there was my first tour, and things changed a bit once MTV came to play, because when MTV came to play, there was an advanced anticipation of what you were about according to what they saw on the video. With Ozzy, there was no video. So, you know, we showed up and people didn't know what to expect. Then they heard Randy playing. Of course, they heard Tommy, they heard Ozzy, me. They heard the songs and they go like, wow, this is amazing. No preconceived idea, notion of what it was going to be about. So it had that impact. It was like, we were not ready for this. So it was kind of like, boom. It was like, wow. So what they would do, and the way that the tour was routed back then, it was, we would do legs. We'd do like the Northeast, then we'd do like the Midwest, and then we kept moving around the country, you know, in areas that were all drivable by maybe 100 miles away from each other. So if you saw a show on Friday and you were blown away, you're going to drive 100 miles and bring your buddies to catch this band. You know, you're going to see this guy, guitar player Randy Rhoads, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's how the band grew so fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing the Blizzard of Oz tour in Seattle when I was a kid, and it blew my mind. Blew my mind.
I remember the show we played was at the Apollo, and the balcony was like about to fall, you know, cave in, because there was people jumping. I mean, I could see it from the stage.
Right.
It was like this. The only other experience that I had on a similar stage, or like was the Apollo in Birmingham, in England. We were doing a show opening up for Judas Priest. It was the same thing. The crowd going up and down, and you see the balcony going up and down like that.
Scary.
That's sketchy. Very sketchy. So, brother, for all the people out there, because obviously you know as well as I do, a lot of the things that we talk about on the show is inspiration. And for people to follow their dreams and not to give up, and no matter how many times you get told no, or you're not good enough, or whatever, the milestones that you got to go over to get where you're at. What would you tell people today that are starting off in music and arts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I just want to tell everybody the most important asset you're going to have, because a lot of people can play. Yeah. So if you're a musician, it's a given that if you're going to dedicate your life and you expect to make it in the music industry, playing it's an obvious thing. Your musical education, your chops, all of that. So having said that, the most important factor is trustworthiness. Trustworthy, because things happen really fast, and how you get jobs, when you get into bands, unless you're putting your own band together. And that's another thing. You always need to be trusted, no matter what. Even if it's a band that is equal members, like I've been with Quiet Riot, or if it's a band that you're just hired to be there, like I did with Ozzy. It doesn't change. The equation stays the same. The formula is, if you're not trustworthy, if you're going to be an alcoholic or a drug addict, somebody who doesn't show up on time, somebody who is a drag to be in the same tour bus, somebody who doesn't communicate well with the musician, if you have no chemistry on stage, all of that, anything that will get you thrown out of the band or fired, yeah, you have to do the opposite. You have to become basically irreplaceable. Be that good. Be that person that if you're not in the band anymore, the band is never the same again. That's the least you should shoot for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good advice. That's good advice. Yeah.
Absolutely great advice.
True. Everybody knows it's like, okay, there's a lot of players, but once you get on a bus together, you got to get around people. It's kind of like, oh man, this guy's a tool. It doesn't last long.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very easy. This is something that I do. Every time I join a band, if I look around and I'm in the front lounge of the tour bus, and if I look around and I cannot find the asshole in the band, it's probably me.
Like,
I'm the asshole. Yeah, I'm the asshole.
Don't say that.
Brother, you've lived a storied life. So much success, so much stories. We've got to have you back on here, and I'd love to have you on my radio show with me as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. God bless you all, and God bless everybody who's been listening. Ask me all these great questions. I love it.
We've got a huge feed of questions and comments out there. We'll have to do this again so we can answer some more of them and get some more stories out of you, brother. I thank you so much.
Look forward to it. Thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye.
Yep.
See you, my brother. Wow, dude. I can't even comprehend the places and the things and the people that he has come in contact with and seen and experienced. And you're talking rock royalty. You're talking music royalty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Quiet Riot, one of my all-time favorite bands, Mental Health broke the scene loose on Sunset Strip, where it blew up. And Aussie, obviously, Jesus God, I mean,
Whitesnake, Dio, Blue Oyster Cult, Queens, right?
Yeah.
We didn't even get into that. There's just so many different things. I didn't realize the Yngwie thing. I don't know why I didn't know that, but
and
a ton of stuff.
For everybody out there watching and part of the Hangout family, I am so sorry. So let me give you a little backstory here. 10 minutes before showtime, my little guy decides that he's going to plug something in and disconnects my computer completely. We lose everything. Robby and I are totally in the dark. We have to reconnect. We have to do this whole process over again. And right as I get reconnected, there Rudy is waiting to come on, and we're ready to launch. It has affected my computer from the start. Everything looked glitchy. Rudy looked very pixelized on my end.
I think it's okay. I think it was fine on my end. Maybe it's okay.
And I
wouldn't sweat it. I wouldn't sweat it.
I lost connection to all the comments to the audience. So if you didn't see me putting anything up on the screen like I normally do, I had no connection to the comments after about a third of the way through the show. So apologies. It's not that we were ignoring you or whatever, but it's just I didn't see them. So my wife was literally, I've got massive amounts of notes that she's been passing around the computer to me trying to get me to respond to things and ask questions. So I'm sorry. We're definitely going to reach out to Rudy again to ask him to come back on, because I don't even think we've even touched on that story.
Well, one big takeaway for this, for me, and should be for a lot of people, is when he left Ozzy to join Quiet Riot, that him finding joy in a situation that he had no idea was going to blow up as huge as it was. He's already touring and, really arguably the biggest band in the world. I mean, right up there, right? And he's leaving, walking away from that because he was finding his joy. Now that for everybody in life, it doesn't have to be music. It could be anything you're doing. That just shows you that the path of joy, what it does for you, enlightenment, I don't know, I'm trying to put it into the proper words, but you see where I'm going with this, that if you follow your passion and you follow your joy, look what happened for him. We're all beings, the same beings. You follow your joy, doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be music. It could be anything. But I thought that to me was the most fascinating part of the whole thing. That's the biggest takeaway I got from that. I was like, wow, you walked away from Ozzy to find your passion and joy. And you get it because Randy had passed, and you know how horrible it must have been. I mean, I lost my best friend, was in a band together, and he died. It was 1986, and it was horrible. I mean, I don't even remember the year that followed. I mean, it was just like a blur. I was like completely lost, but I wasn't in a situation like he was. But he walks away from that, joins a situation where he felt better and at home, and and it shows, like you said, organic. And look what happened. They just blew up and had a lot of success. I mean, huge success. They really, Quiet Riot kickstarted a lot of stuff with that record.
Absolutely.
So it's really inspiring. Should be for anybody, no matter what your age. It doesn't matter your age. If you're here and you're breathing, anything you can keep doing it. You just do it.
Absolutely. I mean, Mental Health was the biggest album to come out, and then it launched. All of them signed behind that. Poison, Great White. They all just.
Rat was coming. Knocking. And I saw those videos
all of them.
so many times. So many times did I see the Come On Feel the Noise video. I mean, who didn't watch this over and over and over? I mean, it was, and you didn't get tired of it. It was just, it was.
We're all crazy now. Even when Slade did the rendition of "Mama, We're All Crazy Now," you know what I mean? It's just
Slade wrote the song. They covered that. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, so even when they did the rendition, the song never lived up to what Quiet Riot did with that song. I mean, it just
definitely Come On Feel the Noise, no question. That was just,
Yeah.
And who didn't play it? I mean, I have memories of playing that in a cover band.
Right.
That and Mental Health is like. Well, actually, the band I was in did half originals, half covers, but we did cover that song, both of those songs. And, the dance floor would pack. And then, when you have their attention, we'd immediately, as soon as it's done, go into original song to try and keep them there. Like, hey, this is one of ours.
Right.
yeah, we got one of ours. It's not quite like that, but, we're trying.
Oh, so now my comments want to come back up on the screen here. The prime years of MTV. Okay, so I'm seeing some of them now. We'll do it again. We've got some great guests coming up in the future. Guests coming up in the future. I saw a lot of people in there tonight. Obviously, James Hyde, we love you, brother. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Robby, we got to talk about something for a minute.
What's that?
Okay, so James Hyde and I had a phone call or a conversation the other night that he said he would personally come out and MC the concert if I can put you guys on a stage out here.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I'm waiting for ARM to get back to me with an offer, man.
No, you got to give them the offer.
No, I've put the offer out there. They got to accept it. So we need to get James Hyde out here and introduce you guys on the stage. That'd be great.
We've got some open window in July and August. There's some dates, and I think there's some in September. Nothing in October.
All right, we'll have to. James Hyde is the most interesting man alive. From Matthew. Hey, James Hyde is an incredibly interesting human being and a fantastic actor, so he'd be fun out here to toy around with. But yeah, I think we should get him out here and get you guys out here. Speaking of concerts, I've got a concert going on this Friday.
You do, that's right.
The Country Strong Concert Series takes the stage this Friday at 6 p.m. right here in San Angelo. It's going to be a great show. Great show.
I'd be there, but we'll be in Nebraska. We're playing with 38 Special. So anybody in Nebraska, come on out and see us with 38 Special at Milligan, Nebraska. The next night we're in Missouri with Ron Keel will be opening for us.
Nice.
So we got, a couple nights and, the weekend warrior thing. Then we're back home and back out again.
So I will tell you that Patrick and I were talking. Patrick is the drummer from the State Line Band. And he's my business partner in a couple things. And we were talking the other night, and he said it has now become his desperate dream to perform on stage with Mr. Lochner.
Desperate dream. Come on.
That's what he said. He said, man, he says, I had a dream the other night that I was on stage and Robby was playing guitar with us.
Well, shoot. 6 degrees of separation.
That's it.
I would say it's one because I know him. So it's like
Rafa.
Separation. Okay.
Rafa says we need some JRGW in San Antonio.
What's that?
Rafa says we need JRGW in San Antonio. No, Rafa, I think you'll have to make the drive up to San Angelo if I do the show, bro.
If we'll do the country thing, I'm down with that. I got my tellies ready. Been working on been kind of doing some country stuff, kind of just tinkering around because I just love the country guitar playing. I know some people don't, but I do.
I know you do.
Rips, man. I know you guys like that. Come on, Brad Paisley. Come on now.
Brad Paisley is a badass on the guitar, dude. Like not a lot of people give him credit for what he can do. I've seen that man. I don't know
why, man. He's a monster.
He is a monster. So now Sean and my mom and dad and everybody are piping up saying make it September or October so they can be home from Oregon. Of course, we went up to the hemp farm this past week. As you can see, I got a little color from being out planting for row after row after row after row after row.
Didn't wear any sunscreen. So Sean can make it out? Sean can make it out to the show?
Sean says he can make it out in October-ish or September. My mom and dad both said September.
Well, you got to make it happen so Sean can make it and your folks can be there too, right? Come on,
I'm down, dude. Jennifer, you say you want to do it up in, where did she say she wanted to do it? I don't know. What, Amarillo? No, you got to come down to San Angelo. San Angelo is the place you want to be.
Let's do 2 of them. Could put them in 2 different places. You got that? Friday, Saturday.
I'm doing that Friday, Saturday. Do you see how different I look, dude? I've lost 75 pounds today.
That's awesome.
Stress.
It's
all stress.
And it's not hair, then you're fine. Now you're looking good, man. You're looking good.
Yeah, you tell me that on screen. What did you tell me before?
Because you've been wearing your hat all night.
I know. Well, I have to with that dude, bro. Come on. I didn't even have time to get ready after I got home from work. So, yeah, I think we make the show to happen, and we'll have some fun with that. As always, we love each and every one of you for supporting us, for being there with us. This is now, what, episode 58?
I'm not sure. It's been over a year and a month or 2 now.
Yeah, it's episode 58. That's crazy.
Nice.
Crazy. And they're still lining up. We're still getting them. We got guys from Styx. We got the guys from Night Ranger coming up. We've got some guys that are doing a tribute to Brian Wilson. We're going for Brian Wilson himself. We've got the drummer from Foreigner. Who else do we have, Robby?
Matt Starr's next week. Matt Starr. Plays with Ace Frehley, Mr. Big. He's done a bunch of stuff. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun hang.
Hell yeah.
I know we got Bill Cinque. He's going to be coming on. He played with Neil Diamond. Bill's
Neil Diamond.
Yeah. Wow. He's the one who introduced me to Albert Lee, and I was just like, oh, man, I love you.
You'll be my best friend forever.
Yeah, come on, man. You introduced me to Albert Lee. Was that the coolest ever?
Rafa says we need to have George Lynch on. Do we want to get George Lynch on?
Yeah, we can get George. I mean, we played a show with him. He was playing with Dokken and with, he did his thing, and then he came back with Dokken, but I didn't talk to him. Talked to his bass player, talked to his drummer, but he was kind of MIA whenever we were floating around, and his cats were kind of hanging out, having fun.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah. Tom Jones, Cora, what kind of ties do you think we have?
It's not unusual. Tom and his Jones.
Hello, pussycat. All right, let's call it a wrap. We'll see you next week. Are we doing this time again, or are we doing it later time?
I think we already set it for later. Let's keep it later. But we can talk about doing it a little bit earlier. I think, I kind of like it a little earlier.
I
Maybe
like it
just
earlier.
An hour earlier.
John McCartney, leave your hat on.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks, John. Way to support, bro.
Okay, then. We will see you next week with Matt Starr.
All right. We'll see you then. Much love. Bye-bye.